7 years ago, in a small town in Indonesia, a high school student named Putri Divin experienced profound grief. Her mother, who was nearly full term in her pregnancy, suddenly went into labor and passed away. This event left a deep sorrow for Putri and her family. Putri and her close friend, Dee, rushed to the hospital after receiving the sad news. The atmosphere in the delivery room was filled with mourning. The newborn baby boy, who was the hope of the deceased, became the only reminder of the mother's presence. After the funeral, Putri's home became eerily quiet and tense. On the first night after the funeral, something strange happened. The baby boy, named Farhan, cried continuously. No one could calm him down. In the middle of the night, the sound of dishes being washed could be heard from the kitchen. Even though no one was washing them, Putri and her family were frightened. They believed the sound came from her mother's spirit, who wanted to take care of her child. The atmosphere grew more tense as Farhan's cries grew louder. Putri's sister-in-law, unable to bear the situation, finally scolded the spirit of her mother. In a loud voice, she asked the spirit to be calm and not to disturb them. Miraculously, after being scolded, the sound of washing dishes stopped immediately. The next day, when they checked the kitchen, they found all the dishes clean and fragrant. They believed that her mother's spirit had cleaned everything. Since that incident, Putri's father vowed never to remarry. He chose to take care of Farhan with the help of his sister-in-law. This story became a lesson for Putri and her family about the strength of family bonds and the miracles beyond death.
In a bustling boarding house, there lived a quiet girl named Intan. She was often bullied by her housemates, including Riska. Every night, Intan would write in her diary as if it were her best friend. However, her friends never appreciated this hobby. One night, they tore up Intan's diary and even burned it. Reading the diary had triggered Intan's long-suppressed anger. She threatened to take revenge on them. Initially, the threat was taken as a joke, but soon after, terrifying events began to unfold. 3 boyfriends of her housemates pushed Intan into a ravine after humiliating her. Intan disappeared without a trace. Riska, feeling guilty, tried to find Intan but to no avail. Every night, Riska was haunted by nightmares about Intan. One day, Riska found the charred remains of Intan's diary. She decided to search for Intan by the river near their boarding house. It was raining heavily, and Riska fell into the river but continued her search. When Riska returned to the boarding house, she was shocked to see her friends watching TV with pale faces. Strangely, Intan was also there. Riska felt happy and relieved, but there was an odd feeling accompanying her joy. At that moment, the news on TV reported the discovery of 5 bodies at the bottom of the ravine. The victims were found in a gruesome state, their bodies hanging from trees with severe injuries. On their car windows, the same threat Intan had once uttered was written. Riska grew more confused and scared. She asked Intan and her friends, but they only smiled mysteriously. Intan then took Riska to the river and showed her Riska's lifeless body floating on the water's surface. It turned out that Intan had taken revenge on everyone who had hurt her. She used mystical powers to ensnare them and bring them to the world of the dead. Riska, feeling guilty for what had happened to Hinton, ultimately met the same fate.